Hi there everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to my channel. Amongst other things, I'm a reenactor and a jouster, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a video of me getting into my new harness, and I'm going to be answering some questions and doing a bit more of a deeper dive on it. So if you were watching last week, if you've seen last week's video, then I have already shared some of this in a much sped up version, and a lot of people left some questions, so I'm going to be trying to answer those questions this week, as well as adding in some additional thoughts as well. Now, one thing you didn't see last week was me putting on my arming garment, and this is something that generally doesn't happen in Arming of the Night displays. It's not really the exciting part of it, but it is very, very important. And a lot of people may not realize actually how long this can take. So right now I'm putting on my arming doublet. That is a jacket type garment that I use to attach the other pieces of armor. And it needs to be really solid, it needs to be really secure. So it uses a type of lacing called a spiral lacing. Obviously we don't have zips or anything like that, and we don't tend to use buttons in the late 15th century either. They did have the technology for buttons, but they don't appear really on arming doublets. It's possible that this might be because a button would sit proud and might press in. It may just be a style thing because they don't really seem to appear on civilian doublets either. So I'm doing a spiral lacing here. That's one lace going backwards and forwards, all the way up. And if I were a knight, I would probably have someone to help me with this, so I wouldn't have to stare down at my stomach with terrible, terrible posture. Now, I would also be wearing a pair of hose. These would probably just be standard hose. By this point, we're not really adding any padding or anything underneath the armor. It is good enough that it is unnecessary. You only need enough fabric there to stop the chafing. In some documents, you do see, in one document, which I've talked about before with Matt Easton, actually, you do see a recommendation that you wear blankets underneath your leg armor around the knees. That isn't repeated in all arming documents, so it seems to be a recommendation from one guy rather than everyone did this, so we all need to do it. Now, I've kept this video at the normal length. I've not sped it up at all because I think one of the things that people are often surprised by is how long it takes to get into armor. And even if you do go to a Renaissance fair or a festival or something and you see an Arming of the Night display, that often doesn't include the amount of time it takes to get into the arming garments as well. As you can see, this arming doublet is not really padded at all. The shaping is really important, but you don't really need padding. The plate armor can absorb most of the blows that are going to be coming at you, and we don't actually have evidence really for padding in the late 15th century. We do have a recommendation for padding in the tournament book of René of Anjou, but he is only listing things that make the armor for his style of tournament different to normal armor. So that actually suggests that regular arming doublets are not padded in this way. And he only recommends padding over the shoulders. He likes things to look elegant and doesn't like armors that are overly big. So like I said, last week quite a few people asked some questions, so I'm going to go through some of them. there were a lot of repeats, so I'm not going to say who it was because so many people asked the same kind of questions. But thank you everyone who did ask a question. I did read all of them, and hopefully your questions will be answered here. If I don't answer your question, by the way, then please do leave a question down below, and I'll make sure that I answer it either in a future video or in the comments section. So one question that I got was, what inspired me to go for this type of harness? And I did address this in the first video in the series. There's a whole series on my channel of my new armor, which kind of goes from first thoughts and all the way through. But let's address it again. Basically, back in 2019, I jousted at Arundel International Tournament, and I represented England, and I realized that I had an armor and a style of armor that was probably never really seen in England, and certainly wasn't very popular. My previous harness is an alpine kind of Tyrolean style, and it's a very nice armor, and I spent a lot of time and effort and money getting it to the point where I was very pleased with it. And then I realized that if I was possibly going to be representing England and representing an English knight, then I should probably be wearing a harness that we know existed in England in the 15th century. So I am going to be selling the older armor in order to actually fund this armor, pay off the loan that I got to get this armor. But now I have this one, I can go ahead, get rid of the old Tyrolean armor, and I can be an Englishman in an English style of armor. Now, actually, this armor appears in Toby Capwell's latest book on 15th century English armor, or armor in England. It is based on the Lingfield effigy, which is very near to where I live, and his armor is interesting because it has a lot of English traits to it, but it also has some Italian traits. It's not as elaborate as some other English armors of the time. It doesn't. So Toby included it in his third book, which is foreign armor in England. The idea is that it might be an English maker who is taking some cues from Italian armor, or it might be an Italian maker who is taking some cues from English armor. But what we do know is it was worn by an Englishman who lived very close to where I live right now. So I am very happy to have an armor that I feel fits me both as a body, but also as a person, and where I am and what I'm representing. So you can see that I've put on the shoes already, and I have put the sabatons on top. The leg armor was the first part of this harness to arrive with me, and I have done a video on it already, but I will also do some future videos on it as well. The sabaton, the whole leg armor, just fits really well and works really well, and I'm very, very happy with it. So a few people asked, do I feel any differences compared to the old harness? There are some differences that actually I haven't really experienced this one too much to know. The sabatons give a different look, but they're very light, and I really don't feel them at all. My old harness didn't have sabatons at all. This harness doesn't have any mail, and that is in part because I haven't really planned that out yet, and secondly, the effigy doesn't actually include any mail at all. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Even it actually shows the collar of the doublet, which you wouldn't expect. You would expect a male collar to be hiding the doublet collar. So the question is, did this harness originally have mail to go with it or not? Yeah, we'll have to try it out over the coming weeks and months. We'll try it with mail and see if it works better, or see if that causes some problems. So that is a big difference. Yeah, no mail yet. Another difference with the legs that you can see right now is that my previous harness has a articulation at the top of the thigh, whereas this one does not. And my previous harness has buckles on the inside of the thigh, whereas this one has them on the outside of the thigh. So, so they're small details. I've not experienced any problem with not having the articulation at the top of the leg yet. I have ridden in this leg armor. I wore it at the Battle of Bosworth, and I did not notice a difference, and that was with mounting from a block, but also dismounting directly onto the ground with no block, and I didn't notice any problem or anything like that. It does make you wonder why they put those articulations in if they were unnecessary, because I still get pretty good coverage with this setup. Another question, which I really like this one, was if you have kids, do I have kids? And if so, do they think it's really cool that their dad is actually a knight in shining armor? Well, when the armor arrived, I wasn't actually in, and my neighbor took the delivery for me. And when we got back, I got my son to come and help me get it. And we were carrying it back to the house, and he said, "What's in it, Dad?" And I said, "It's my new armor." And he looked really disappointed and went, "Oh." So yeah, I think in some ways he thinks it's cool, but I think that he just thinks it's like, this is just what dads do. Like, you know, like all kids are a little bit like, they just think that all all families are the same as theirs. Maybe when he realizes that not everyone has a suit of armor, it'll be a bit more interesting to him. I don't know. So there is quite a good rhetorical question that someone asked, where they said, why are late 15th and early 16th century armors so beautiful? And I think it would be worth addressing this, because in the medieval period, there is such a connection between warfare and the rich and the famous and the beautiful. You know, you cannot just have a functional armor if you are a knight. You need to have one that looks good, because hopefully you're going to be wearing it to to tournaments and things like that and impressing people. It can't just be something that works well. It needs to be something fashionable and beautiful as well. So I think that's why late medieval armor does look so cool. Another question, what is my AC? I think it's 18 in full plate armor, but I'm sure someone could tell me in the comments down below. The reason why we're able to do this video is brought to you by my brother, who came over late on a Sunday night to help me get into my silly armor. Hopefully his armor will be finished soon, and we could do a video of me getting him into his armor. Yeah, that would be cool. Drop a like for my brother, and if we get loads, then we'll have a look at his armor as well. So this is the part where I put the fold on. and I was very keen to have a separate fold. If you if you follow armour at all, then you'll know that Toby Capwell had an English armour made, which included a separate fold like the one that I've got here. And English armours did tend to have longer folds than you see in some places in Europe. Certainly they weren't the only armour type that included these longer folds, but they did. And someone asked, how is this going to work when jousting? And in part, this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask myself when I was wearing it. And yes, Toby's armor, he did sell it on, and he did get something different because, as he has said several times, he wanted something. He was mostly doing jousting. He wanted something that was made specifically for jousting. Now, this armor, I don't think it is for jousting, as it is, but I think it is one that would work okay with that. It is not the most English of styles. You know, the fold isn't very, very, very long, and I think it is going to be okay. One of the things that you do need to think about is it's not just how long the fold is, it is how that interacts with the saddle that you are using as well. There are lots of images of people in incredibly long folds, much longer folds than the one that I have in this armor, and they are riding horses in them, and they are using different saddles to the one that Toby used with his armor. So yeah, it's not just this armor will work for jousting and this one won't. It is looking at the system as a whole, and this armor might work in any saddle, this armor will work in some saddles, and this armor would work in a very, very small amount of cases. I think this armor that I've just got is probably in that middle group where it will work in some situations, but it won't work with every saddle and every horse. And yeah, and the other thing is that Toby loves getting new armors and buying new armors. So yeah, it's not just that it wasn't perfect for his use of it, it was also that Toby likes new things and trying new things. Yeah. So another thing people have noticed, and this was what most of the questions were about, was about the fold popping out. Now this is a problem, and it is a big problem. You don't want a squishy bit around that part of the armor. That is not how it should be, and this is in part to do with the way that this was ordered and the way that things turned out in the end. So you may know, if you've been watching so far, that this armor was made by Art of Steel in Ukraine, and I was hoping to maybe be able to get a flight over there and maybe have a fitting for this armor, but that didn't work out. Shortly after the leg armor was started, the war in Ukraine broke out, and to be honest, I thought that probably that meant that this project was going to be cancelled, if not on hold indefinitely. And I was absolutely blown away that the guys at Art of Steel carried on and have made such an incredible harness in very difficult circumstances. So that's great. It did mean that I wasn't able to get over for a fitting, and what that in part means is that this this harness is kind of, it comes to me pre-fitting, and then I'm going to need to get an armourer over here to just make any slight tweaks and adjustments that we need to make. So that they could make the armour, I did send them some body casts, and that is why it does all fit so well. But one of the issues with body casts is that they don't quite move like the human body does, and they're also not as soft. So what is happening here, and the reason why this fold drops out of the bottom of the breastplate, is because my body is softer than the body cast, so therefore the waist lame of the fold can squeeze my stomach, and then the waist lame can get smaller than the bottom edge of the breastplate, and it can then fall out. This obviously wasn't a problem with the body cast. It is a problem for me. There's a few things that we can do to fix it. Now, one thing that I could do would be I could put on a lot of weight, so that, but I would need to put it on in exactly the right places, right? I couldn't put on any around the, or much around the chest or anything like that. I'd just have to do it around the waist. So that could be a problem. Another thing that I could do then, if we're going to apply weight in just particular areas, could be to add an additional garment. And if you've watched one of my previous videos, I think that this is one of the things that I'm going to do to help solve this problem. There is a document from the late 15th century, so later than this harness, but within 50 years probably, which talks about the having a leather jerkin underneath the armor. And there are also lots of paintings that appear to show coats being worn underneath armor as well. So a sleeveless jerkin or something like that to first of all kind of pad me out around there, stop that waistline shrinking too much, could well help with this. Another thing that I'm going to try is adding a stop rivet. So that's just a rivet in that waistband that stops it from getting smaller than the lower edge of the breastplate. Hopefully that'll work. If those two things do not work together, which I'm hoping they will, then the most drastic thing would be to add some pins to it so that I can pin the fold to the upper breastplate. Now this is something that we do see on original pieces, so that is not out of the question. In fact, we know that that was done historically, but what that will do is that will cut down on the amount of movement that I have that is afforded by these two pieces being separate in the first place. So, so that's my plan at the moment. If you've got any other ideas, then please do leave them in the comments down below. I know a few people have been kind of thinking over that problem and helping me solve it. So thank you very much to those of you who have. Loads of people also noticed that the shoulders are probably a little bit too low. On the original effigy, they are higher up. We struggled to get them a bit higher, and in part I didn't really know what it should feel like. One of the issues when wearing an armor is that you can't see your armor as you're wearing it. And this was the first time that I had it on. So my brother was putting it on with me telling him what to do, but I really didn't quite know what it should feel like and what it should look like either. So yes, these pauldrons do need to be worn higher up. One of the issues with that is that the points are actually underneath the pauldrons. There are some leather tabs inside them that you lace them on with. And so it's quite tricky to get your hands underneath, especially I think my brother has got larger hands than a lot of potential squires with, so maybe I need to get someone with smaller hands to help me put these pauldrons on. One of the things you might notice with these as well is that the lance rest is kind of interfering with them. It'll be interesting to see once they're actually higher up if that is still the case, but it's worth pointing out that the original effigy did not have a lance rest on. So that was my one divergence from the effigy, was to add a lance rest, because I figured if I'm going to be jousting, I should have an arete to joust with. So it'll be interesting to see, were these pauldrons basically a style that is not designed to go with a lance rest, because they're certainly designed to be part of a modular system. They are separate to the armor, so that suggests that you could remove them, and that suggests that you could have a separate one for different jobs. So maybe these are not designed to go with jousting. Maybe this is for something else. Someone who's definitely done their research asked about whether or not I'm going to be getting the great bassinet that Reginald Cobham has his head lying on. So yeah, this effigy doesn't actually have a sallet. It has got a great bassinet that the guy is lying on. And yes, the plan is that eventually I would have a great bassinet to go with this armor. By the late 15th century, you would probably be seeing sallets with this armor anyway. And yeah, the great bassinet would probably remain in use for tournaments and so on. But I would like to have both, so I have the option. Unfortunately, this is the point where funding has run out. So yeah, I need to wait until I could get that, which does kind of lead me to a point. If you would like to help out this project and help out this channel, then you can head over to Patreon, and you can support me through that, or you could like, share, subscribe if you haven't. All of those things help the channel to grow, and will help this project to continue. Another thing that I don't mention often is that I do have some merch as well. So if you want some cool channel merchandise, then you can get that as well. Well, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed watching this. I really enjoyed wearing it. I am really going to enjoy finishing up this harness and getting it to the point where I am completely happy with it. I think I definitely do want a male standard, particularly if I'm going to be wearing this on battlefields. Maybe some male voiders as well. I don't know if I'm going to have leg voiders and or skirt. I don't know that that's particularly necessary. Maybe a skirt. We'll see. But what do you think? What changes do I need to make? I've talked about a few, and I'm going to do some more videos on some. And yeah, but I'd like to hear your opinions as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This has been a really long video, but hopefully you have enjoyed watching the entire process of putting this on. It's taken about half an hour from the beginning to get this whole harness on, and obviously that includes doublet and shoes as well. But it gives you an idea of how long it would take. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video.